Thank you, Chair and Co-Chair and honorable members of this National Dialogue Committee. Thank you for inviting us. Let me confirm, honorable members, that we did receive the invitation dated 24th of October to appear before this National Dialogue Committee, and we have a written presentation which we have submitted. Chair, outside the formal presentation, let me say we're all concerned, particularly the Ministry of Energy, at the cost of living and energy being a major co-driver of inflation, because it is basically energy is employed in very many facets of our lives, from transportation to powering industry, and so on and so forth. So anything that impacts on the cost of energy impacts on the inflation and the cost of living. And therefore, we are, as you are, looking for ways every day to see how to bring down and make our economy a competitive destination for investors, where cost of living for our people who are employed in industry would be able to make this economy a competitive destination so that we can attract investors. Chair, let me say as opening remarks that the recent happenings, particularly the post-COVID recovery period, where we've seen inflation in economies like the US, Canada, soaring to a high of 9%, is something that is being seen maybe in the last, 22 years, where we see Fed raising interest from a low of 1.5% to a 5.4% today, and then therefore causing the challenge of dollar unavailability in that tightening of monetary policy, and us seeing particularly in the petroleum sector an availability of dollars because investors find it better to have their dollars sitting in investments, cash deposits, as opposed to allowing them to trade. But that is basically a post-COVID recovery of the inflation, where the U.S. has decided to basically mop up the dollars they had issued during COVID to sustain their economies. And so that challenge is there. It's a global challenge. Those of us who trade in tea are unable to sell our tea in the international market because of unavailability of dollars in Pakistan, in Egypt, in Iran. And whereas we need those dollars to procure products which we don't produce as Kenya, like petroleum, pharmaceuticals, and all the other products. And lately, when we have a deficit in food because of the climate change issues and the fact that we have not been able to sustain food security, we need dollars to basically import food to sustain our people. And this has seriously impacted, and like I said, energy, petroleum alone, honorable members, do have a requirement of $500 million on monthly basis. We import products into Kenya worth $500 million on monthly basis. We bring in 8 cargoes, 4 cargoes of diesel. A cargo is 80,000 metric tons. We bring in 4 cargoes of PMS, that is super or petrol, and we bring in 1 cargo of DPK, dual-purpose kerosene. And at a volume of about 750 cubic meters or meter cube, that is about $500 million every month. And to be able to, under the OTS system, honorable chairs, where the product will come into Kenya under OTS and be off-taken by the petroleum companies, luckily this product came off balance sheet. It is not traded by government, it is traded by the oil industry. And when it comes into the Kenya under the OTS system, what we do immediately is they have to offtake the product within 5 days. So you see a sacking of $80 million, $160 million because we receive 2 cargoes every 2 weeks. So we'll require to pay $160 million every week to be able to offtake 2 cargoes, and a cumulative of $500 million for the month. And that is why we had the late nomenclature of G2G, where we went into deferred issuance of LCs, which would service after 6 months. And what that entailed, Honorable Chair, was to basically say, instead of paying for petroleum products on spot purchase every 5 days when the ship docks to Mombasa, on an LC that is issued and unwound immediately, let's go into relationship with governments who would understand the situations that we found ourselves in, and do an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, do a framework agreement where we would bring products on deferred LCs that would service every 6 months, or every LC would be serviced at an age of 6 months, and that basically there would be no accumulation of paying 6 months at a go, but paying as they mature for every cargo. And we did that, honorable members, to basically delay the exiting of $500 million every month, to address with my colleague, the CS Treasury, the macroeconomic issues of ensuring how do we allow those $500 million to be available to the pharmaceutical, to be available to some debt swaps which had been, some swaps which had been done on the Kenya shilling, awaiting the improvement of the dollar liquidity or availability in the country. How do we deal with the food challenge, given the drought that ravaged this region because of the climate change issues for the last 5 years? And so we were able to negotiate with friendly countries like Saudi Arabia, who are the world leading. I think they control 22% of the world oil reserves. We did work with Abu Dhabi and ENOC to work on a framework agreement that would give us products on deferred LCs, and therefore delay the exiting of dollars for a period of 6 months. That, honorable members, did give us some benefits in terms of managing the interbank spread, the speculative tendencies which were there, where everybody of the over 100 oil marketing companies were running around town every day looking for dollars for the spot purchase, and exacerbating the depreciation. Because the Minister for CS National Treasury here will tell us how we've been able to slow down depreciation of the Kenya shilling from a high of 3% to some 1%, albeit the depreciation is still there because the tightening of the monetary policy continues because of the background I gave in basically the U.S. trying to manage its inflation. And we've seen countries like China and Russia trading in ruble, trading in their currencies, almost doing a barter trade in efforts to dollarize their economies, and so on and so forth. I've mentioned about tea. Those of us who trade in tea currently are not able to sell our tea because those other countries out there don't have dollars to pay us, and so on and so forth. So this has been one thing that we've done, Chair. We were able then, under that framework agreement, to negotiate for freight and premium because the petroleum products are traded on Platts. The OPEC countries do fixed prices every month on basis of products which is released to the market every month. So because oil is internationally traded and we've got Platts pricing, the only area you compete on is freight and premium. The cost of bringing the product and the premium which is charged by the oil marketing companies, which we did negotiate and got a fairly competitive rate. Kenya today enjoys freight and premium on diesel of $88 per meter cube, against what is obtaining today in the region, where we've seen a high of 260. I think currently Tanzania is having a freight and premium of about $160 per metric, per cubic meter or metric ton, if you do some literal conversion. So a high of 160 against Kenya 88. For PMS, we are currently having $95 per metric ton for super or petrol, whereas the region is having a fairly high rate, which I've shown in that document that I did circulate. And we've been, because we're dealing with a government to governments, agreed to that whenever the rates come down in the region, we are able to open that framework agreement and be competitive so that we are always below the pricing in the region. Albeit we can't do much on the international pricing of petroleum, which has soared from a $70 to $80 to $90. And I read an article in the Financial Times the other day because of the Hamas and Israeli war, that that the international prices could go up to $150. And that would literally mean our products going to a high of 300 shillings per litre at the pump. We hope it doesn't get there. So we are almost managing scaling the heights as we chew the gum every day to make sure we do manage this frame. And because I did say, Chair, that these are products which are real drivers of inflation. And so we are conscious, honorable members, we are working on it on a day-to-day basis to make sure that though it's a global challenge, we do obtain the best pricing for our country. Kenya is a gateway for Uganda, Kenya is a gateway for Congo, South Sudan. And so we are not just managing for Kenya, we are trying to really obtain the best as a gateway because of our port of Mombasa, which services the other countries which are landlocked in the region. So far, what are the benefits? I've mentioned a bit that we've slowed down the depreciation, honorable members, chairs. We've managed the interbank. I think Professor Njuguna will tell us, and I'm quite happy today because when I go to these kind of meetings alone, and I talk to so much finance, and I'm lucky today to have the financial experts to support me to talk to the rate of depreciation, talk to the interbank, talk to what kind of swaps have been unwound, and the kind of profits which the multinationals have been able to expatriate, because it's also not good for investments when dollars are not available in the country. People like Safaricom doing business, and when they make a profit, they need to take their profit out. And that is really why they invest in the region. If you cannot take out your money, like sometimes in countries, our neighbors like Ethiopia, it becomes a disincentive for investors. So really, in terms of availability, in spite of the fact that it is still tight, if we did not do the G2G, the situation would have been really dire today. I don't know whether we could possibly be at 200 plus today. But the fact that we've been able to slow down sucking or exiting of $500 million every month from petroleum is a real big gain. What we're also able to do, honorable members, on petroleum is to basically say, over this period, why don't we then offtake the product as they land in Mombasa on Kenya shillings? A Kenya shilling which then sits in escrow account, earning on T-bill rate, and the T-bill rate will go to the pump over that period before we pay the international market. So the interest that is earned in the agreement that have been done, the commercial agreement that supports this transaction, is taken to the pump to support the depreciation. So the yield, actually T minus 2 goes to the pump, the minus 2 goes to the banks. We also, similarly for dollars, which we are holding, because under this framework, the dual purpose kerosene, which is really the aviation fuel, is taken on the dollar by the flight industry. And the product that goes to our neighboring countries is taken on the dollar. So we do get 40% product being paid on dollar, while the Kenya product is paid on the shilling. The dollar is also invested. I think we are sitting on some $1.2 billion today. We've already serviced some 10 cargos. And the dollar, like I said, is also invested on SOFRA minus 2. The yield also goes to the pump to support the industry in terms of the depreciation. So even as we sit today, except that we are unwinding the dollars, or rather removing the dollars as they mature, we are sitting on some $1.2 billion to support the repayments of the product as they mature, as the LC mature after 6 months, on the age of 6 months for that matter. So that's what we've done on petroleum. Honorable members, chairs, we are very conscious. We are working on it every day. We're looking at the region, like I said. If the freight and premium comes down, we open the contract with the 3 governments, Saudi, ADNOC, Abu Dhabi, and Emirates, to say, look, since you have this contract for 6 months, we shouldn't be paying higher premiums than what is obtaining in the region. When we look at the comparatives in terms of pricing in Tanzania today, in South Africa, go to UK, go to US, you'll possibly, I don't know whether we gave the figures there, but in some jurisdictions, they are paying as much as 300 shillings per litre, where we are paying 200. So it's a global challenge. We are managing, honorable members, on a day-to-day, like I said, and we are looking for innovative solutions. What we've done lately is to renegotiate the freight and premium. Like I said, it's an open, it's not locked under the framework agreement, to bring it down. What we are doing after the proof of the system working, we've asked those countries to remove what we call confirmation. KCB alone has opened, I think, LCs worth about 800 billion. They are supported by Stanbic, supported by a number of banks, Mauritius Bank. And what has happened is, because of the risk and exposure of a bank not being able to pay, or the risk for that matter, there is need for confirmation, not reconfirmation. And because the system is working well, we are now talking to those governments to say, do we really need to confirm these LCs, which were priced at 0.7% of the cost of the, and we have negotiated to basically pledge the cash in the account today because the system is working, and therefore confirmation is removed. So we get another benefit of 0.7%, which would otherwise go to confirmation for the investment grade banks or the AAA banks who confirm and take the risk out of KCB in case of a liquidity challenge, or KCB is not able to pay for those or the risk taker for the LC issuing banks. So we are now removing. We are in the process of removing the confirmation, and we will subsequently see slight reduction on the cost of the financing facilities for this product. So that's what we are doing with petroleum. Unfortunately, there's nothing much we can do on the Platts pricing because they are set by OPEC. But on freight and premium, I can assure these honorable members and sitting that we are doing our best, and possibly Kenya is obtaining the best in the region because of the fact that the OTS system, the open tender system, is all employed in this G2G to be able to secure the support on this driver of inflation and cost of living. That's the much I would like to say for now. For petroleum, I think the details are in the paper which I've circulated. For power, because of time, power is another big driver. It's another really big driver, and we are conscious about the cost of power in this country. It's expensive. You will recall, members, that Kenya predominantly generated power from hydro. We ran Masinga, Kindaruma, Gitaru, Kiambere for a long time until we were hit by the drought of the early year 2000, when we had a huge drought, and we brought in the Agrecos and the IPPs, which today are being seen to be very expensive because hydro today dispatches at about 3 to 4 cents US dollar per kilowatt hour. Very good pricing. You cannot get that kind of pricing anywhere. But because of hydrology, in the year 2000, we had to bring in these power generators that were quick to deploy. Because when you have shortage of power, you can go to the shops and buy a diesel engine and start it now and sort out your power problem. But it comes at a very huge price. They dispatch power to the grid today at anything up to 20 cents, 25 cents, and even when you go to Moroni, the Moroni GT, it dispatches power at 72 cents, 52 cents US, which is about 70 shillings per kilowatt hour. When hydro should ordinarily be dispatching at less than 7 shillings, we are dispatching at 72 shillings in Moroni. So because of that, the country then embarked on development of geothermal. And I think Kenya today is lauded as the 6th largest geothermal country utilizing geothermal, a very difficult power to develop because you do your service studies, you drill. It's like oil exploration. You drill 3 kilometers, and today we have got about 49% of our economy being supported by geothermal. So predominantly today, what we call a base load, which was yesterday hydrology or hydro, is today geothermal. And what has really helped us today is the fact that the leaders of yesterday worked so hard to develop geothermal. And if I just give some numbers to appreciate that we are not in a bad place, Tanzania today is load shedding 10 hours every day. So 10 hours, you don't have power, not because it is a blackout. It's been switched off because there is not enough power in the country. Zambia, Malawi, South Africa are load shedding into 12, 14 hours per day. Again, because of the climate change issues affecting us. Even Ethiopia, who gives us 200 megawatts at very competitive pricing of 6 cents US through a PPA we signed some times back. We've signed for 200, they are not able to give us 200. They are giving us 100 because they don't have enough water. The floods in Marsabit that we saw in the last 3-4 days have helped them to put some water in the dams. And we are now seeing slight improvement on what they are able to give us. So because of that, honorable members, hydrology, even as we speak today, though I went to the year 2000, we've not seen good rains in the last 3-4 years. We don't have water. In the data, and I'll be happy to give a supplemental onto that report which we gave, we've been dispatching 0 megawatts from Masinga for the last 2 months. We don't have water in Masinga. Even with these rains, the eastern and Your Excellency Kalonzo, you may be aware that whereas we've seen in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks rains in the west of Kenya, we've not seen much rain in the east part of Kenya, though we are beginning to see water coming up now. At a height of a low of 1035 meters above sea level, we are only having 2 meters now after the rains have just come in, but we are still not dispatching. We are doing 0 out of Masinga today.
I was there yesterday, and I can tell you it's beginning to fill up.
It's beginning to come up. In fact, we've seen 3 meters today. Of today, we are 3 meters above 1035. So, honorable members, why am I going there? When we don't have water, which was predominantly the generator for Kenya, though geothermal has really been useful lately because I said as a base load, it's not already doing 49%, we have to run the diesel. When you run the diesel, which I did give a background that it is dispatching at 70 shillings, it is dispatching at 50 shillings, you do expect the cost of power to go up. When Dr. Siror, the CEO for Kenya Power, spoke to the media the other day, he was like, would it be better not to have power at all to service a hospital or to have expensive power? It's not because we want to dispatch expensive power. If Masinga is at 0, even for you and me, you would go out and start your generator because it's better to have that expensive power than no power at all. So given the challenge of climate change and mitigation and actions that are ravaging, rather the whole world is talking about today, as Kenya, we are accelerating geothermal development. We just brought in an additional 35 megawatts in Menengai. We are bringing another 70 megawatts. We are drilling in Paka Silali. We are at 100 megawatts of steam, and we want to put in converters to get them into generate power as quickly as possible. And these come in geothermal today because of our knowledge and capacity and availability. Geothermal is available 24/7. The solar and the wind, which is talked about on climate change platform to save the world, is not available at night. Solar is not available. As we speak, at peak hour today, we need 2160 megawatts today, but we don't have enough power. We are currently load shedding, though quite small. So we really need to bring in the base load, and solar is not available at night. When it rains like it's raining now, the Electrocana 310 megawatts dispatches at 20%. Kipeto dispatches at very low percentage when it rains. I think when it rains, because of the vertical force of rain, the wind almost comes down to zero. And so we have a challenge, honorable members. We are on top of it. We are quickly and like the previous regimes working on geothermal to support our base loads. We're trying to now do hybridization so that we are able to store solar and wind when it is there because of intermittence, because the price of batteries have significantly come down today. Solar panels have come down. So we're trying to deploy in the current pricing cycle 23-27, we've got some 200 megawatts of storage, battery storage system to store the solar when it is there and we don't need, because honorable chairs and members, the problem with this intermittent power, they come on a PPA framework called take or pay. When it is there, you must take it, otherwise you still pay. So why don't we store and then we use it when we need it? Because when it comes in what we call economic order merit of dispatch, they take priority number one. Whenever it comes, you take it, because if you don't take it, you still pay. So we then bring in batteries to store that power and use it when we need it, because the price of technology for storage today has come down, and then basically be able to also reduce the intermittence and stabilize the grid. One other thing which we are doing, honorable members, and which should have been done yesterday, is to deconstrain some of the transmission systems. When I came in, we found, for example, let me use one, Takwel, Otum, Kitale network or line, not having capacity to transmit generation from Takwel. Because when we developed Selenkei, Sedet, and Alton, the solar power plants in the west of Rift, the transmission line capacity was not upgraded. And for the last 4 years, we are not transmitting, or we are not utilizing Takwel, which comes to the grid at 3 cents, 4 cents, because the transmission line is not able to carry both the solar from Alton, Selenkei, and Sedet, and carry the Takwel because of the order of merit of dispatch, take or pay. So what do? We carry the expensive power from solar, which is intermittent and not good for the grid, and the hydro is sitting idle because we did not put some investment of 300 million to complete the capacity of the line to evacuate that power. That is currently going on. We'll finish in maybe another 2 months. Similarly for Narok, Bomet, where the network to Olkaria has been built, the network from Bomet has been built all the way to Migori to support the tea factories in Bomet, Kericho, all the way to Awendo. And so we've got load shedding in Awendo, in Bomet, and Kericho in the evening. We don't have enough voltages. We are using Moroni 73 shillings power plant to support the voltages, because we have not built Narok Bomet to allow the Olkaria power to go all the way to Awendo. So again, we are currently sourcing a contractor. We've got funding, and we'll get most of that cheap geothermal power to go all the way down to Migori County and service that western part of the country. And these are network issues that should have really been addressed in terms of getting the grid more stable and being able to offtake or to carry the kind of load, the kind of power that we need in those regions in terms of managing demand and supply for the country. Honorable members, we are conscious. We are really working on the 2 areas in petroleum and energy, in the grid capacity, in generation, confirming and assuring ourselves that even as we go forward to generate new power, we should go to what you'd call auction for licenses so that they compete on prices of licenses as opposed to coming and negotiating privately in my office or in another office to generate power when they can be, the auction process can be done in the open and the best price IPP can take that license and generate power for us. Unfortunately, members, I must also say, power is not a quick fix. When we plan power today for the next 5 years, what we're doing is not for tomorrow. And so unless we do what we must do today, we'll have problems in 27, 28, 2029. So the challenges we are seeing today are the challenges of the yesteryears because of, and as we speak, you remember we had this moratorium. We don't have much power plants being built today, and as I talk to load shedding, what power plants are almost reaching completion to support us tomorrow, 25, 26, 27. Those are the challenges we are crumbling with, but I want to assure our honorable members that we are on top of it, and we'll ensure that we do not get into where the region is because of not planning. And so the leaders of both houses, when we removed the moratorium that was placed by the executive sometimes back, Parliament put another moratorium. We need to remove that moratorium so that we can make sure that the power plants who are ready to dispatch or the licenses that needs to be signed can be signed so that we do not have challenges in 26, 27, and 28 where we could fall into where the region is today, load shedding 10, 12, 13, 14 hours a day. Honorable members, I submit. Thank you.
As